Hello, my name is Sharon Ciccone and I live in Poughkeepsie, New York. I'm a mixed media artist that works in acrylic paint, a lot of water soluble media, and hand printed papers or hand painted papers for collage. Um, my artwork mostly focuses on flora and fauna, as you will see, and I really think about the idea of place and time in my work. I hope that you enjoy seeing a lot of my work, my journey, and my process, and where I am today. So, thank you for joining me. I live small, but I have a big view. We have a condo right on the Hudson River, and it has great views, but comes with a lot of challenges because it's a very tiny space. This is my workspace. It's a countertop in my kitchen, and what's nice is it's large and I really spread out, and you can see I make huge, large messes. I store most of my paints and materials in plastic bins so that I can store them in my closet, including my collage papers. What I really like is the clear bins are see-through and I can see the colors. I work mainly on paper, so it's easy to store as well. And as a collage artist, I am constantly working with wet paper, and the shower becomes a great hanging space. I have been an art educator for over 28 years, and I work with students in grades K through 5. And the one thing that it has really been so inspiring for me is the amount of play. Children are completely unencumbered and will try anything and have a lot of fun doing it. In my classroom, I allow students free reign of all of my materials at all times. And what's really great about that is that they've become little mixed media artists as well. I've been president of the New York State Art Teachers Association, and I also have won awards like the New York State Art Teacher of the Year. But that opportunity was really the pinnacle of my career. And here I am interviewing the artist Nick Cave, which I was able to bring in for one of our conferences. Unfortunately, I spent so many years working on my art education career that I really left behind my art. When I came back to my own art practice, I came back to my love of collage and paint. It was something that I used to do all the time, and I really had kind of forgotten how much I loved it. But when I started really coming back to it and working with acrylic painting and collage, my collage was really covering the surface. It was very heavy, but I was still working with all of my own handmade prints and painted paper. It's just that I spent so much time collaging and covering up the layers underneath that the work was pretty heavy. But it got me back into working, and that was the most important thing. I think these final pieces that you're seeing really show the transition that is coming next, and that's kind of exciting. Layers, layers, and more layers, textures, marks, and a play of transparency, translucency, and opaqueness became my process. It's something that really developed over time and really thinking about some of the work that I had done before. Sometimes I was working with acrylic skins, which add some really interesting collage and layers. But then I really started working with tissue papers, painting on tissue papers so that they really melted into the image. Sometime I was even working with a lot of water-soluble materials like watercolor, sealing the watercolor, and then working over top of that with collage. And I really liked that watery look to it, sometimes with a little bit more opaqueness and some thick layers of paint. As I think you'll notice, color is one of the most important elements that I use in my artwork, and I was exploring just lots of different colors. I also stain some of my tissue papers, and I like how when you layer the stained papers over each other, you get these really translucent depths to the work. What happened next was a real breakthrough for me, and when everything really just all started to come together. This piece of, it's called Ripe for the Picking, which was blueberries. And I just really started to get all of those layers of transparency and opaqueness and collage together. When the world shut down, I had time to breathe. I had time to play and discover who I was and what I wanted to be. This was the beginning of 100 Works of Art. I was teaching students at home. I think a lot of us had that kind of experience. And so I started to play on large sheets of paper and creating these really loose abstract images. And then I would cut the sheets of paper into squares, and I kept working on this process until I had 100 starts. Those starts have been a great source for me. I pull them out of my boxes when I'm ready to start a new series. This one happened to be my purple series, and as I was working, of course, I was recording the entire process from beginning to end each day that I worked on it. And you can actually visit my website to see all of these step by step as I started to build them. And it just has been something that I can keep on going back to as I'm inspired. My purple series ended up being in my first 3-man show in a real gallery, along with some other works that I had been working on. So it was very exciting. If I could start 100 works of art, why not do the 100-day project, I thought. I had a promotional book that my husband had brought home from work, and it had the most beautiful pages. And since I really don't like working on a blank surface, it gave me something to respond to. Part of doing the 100-day project is really coming up with something every day. So I really was photographing tons of things and from my life and finding inspiration. And every day I created a small 4x6 work of art. Each day I was doing some similar techniques, but I tried to keep a lot of my materials very simple. So I was working with some Posca pens, some stencils, some tissue papers and collage, and just trying to do some different techniques. And what was great in the end is that I had such a variety of techniques and work and images, and because they were small, they're easy to mount, and I am slowly putting them on my shop for sale. Although a lot of what you've seen so far has been about botanicals, my husband and I are actually world travelers. We've been to, I think, 45 countries at this point. My original goal was to get to 50 countries by the time I was 50 years old, but unfortunately, COVID got a little bit in the way. We're now starting to get back into travel again, and part of living small was so that we could live big and we could travel as much as we wanted to and be inspired by all the things that we see in the world around us. Once again, dipping back into my 100 starts, this was a great opportunity for me to bring travel into my work as well. We had been to a lighting and design fair in New York City, and they had the most beautiful books that really had a lot of great quality paper and some interesting artist designs. So I used a lot of that collage paper. So sometimes I work with my own papers and sometimes I work with found papers. And I use those as a starting point for all of my collages. And then again, building in those layers, doing lots of stenciling, some of my handmade papers as well, I was able to create a series from all of our travels. Some of these from desert areas to the Galapagos, Norway, different kinds of landscapes, which I really enjoy. Most of the landscapes, unlike this one, are from a little bit of a distance and a little bit more wide open, but all of them have very similar kinds of ideas and techniques. And again, you can see this on my website. Being part of community has always been important to me, whether it is my school community, my educators community, or my art community. And I really enjoy giving back. I've developed some blogs, some little freebies to find meaning. I started my Make Your Mark Monday newsletter, which has different kinds of prompts and strategies and also some questions to think about. I show some process. This happened to be about fluid and fixed. And I also enjoy just finding things to share. So what's on my easel today? Well, more of my 100. Right now I'm working on my series of 10 numbers 71 through 80. And these to me just felt really watery. I've been kind of holding off on these until I found just the subject that I wanted to work with. And it being summer, water is an important part of that feeling of joy and comfort. So I started thinking about back to my botanicals, and we have lots of water gardens around us. So lots of different places to visit, and the botanical gardens in New York City. So I have lots of photographs to work from just different places and different times that I've visited there. So I've been working on these backgrounds, and again, I work on top of those. I typically start with composition in acrylic paint first, just to kind of lay out my idea and figure out where things are going to be. And then I allow that background area to give me something to respond to. So I'll start to push some things back and bring some things forward as I work on them, allowing the layers to show through some of the paint, to think about how I can use those negative areas to build up some more textures and marks. A lot of what you see will eventually be painted over in some fashion, or I will use some of my hand-printed or painted papers, mostly working with this idea of transparency, opaqueness, and translucency. So different papers will serve different functions for me to either push things back or allow some things to show through. I might paint around some of the marks so that those fresh marks from the beginning will still show through and become part of the final composition. So this is a little bit of my process in action. I hope you enjoyed watching some of that. I do put a lot of things on YouTube as well, so you can see more there. I want to thank you for joining me. I hope that wasn't too much, but now you know a little bit more about me, a little bit more about my artwork, and how I got to be where I am today. I'm so excited to see where I'm going to go next. I'm so inspired by everyone and everything that I see. So it's really fun to know that where we are right now is not where we're going to end. And I hope to have, as I move towards my retirement, a lot more time to make art and to share it with all of you. So thank you.